This is Hannibal here from the HannibalTV.com. I just finished watching the Rampage Jackson podcast with Ric Flair on as a guest, and I would say it's one of the most entertaining interviews I've seen of Ric Flair since he's been doing these podcasts to promote his Woo energy drink and his weed gummies. Rampage Jackson actually eats two packages of the weed gummies, which at least the first package they claimed was CBD, but then he said he got high off of it and he ended up eating a second package. So Jackson gets funnier as the interview goes on. The one interesting thing at the start is Ric Flair says Logan Paul is with us now. When he brings up Logan Paul as if he's still with WWE. However, later in the interview, he talks about AEW. He's talking about WWE actually more than AEW in this interview. But at one point in the interview, he mentions that the WWE is about to go to France for SummerSlam, which is wrong. It's Backlash. I think SummerSlam's in Cleveland this year, Logan Paul's hometown. But he then brought up Wembley Stadium last year having a big crowd for AEW, and they're coming back this year. And he mentions why he's with AEW is because he can make more money with his Woo energy and marijuana products than working for WWE. Although he said he was paid well over the years in WWE, but he says he's making more money now than ever. It's still amazing to me that AEW does not use him. They have all these attendance problems, and they never put him on the posters. I mean, they do use him, it's a surprise, and it's usually something very forgettable. It's one of the biggest turnoffs of AEW, how they waste one of the all probably one of you can't have a Mount Rushmore of wrestling without Ric Flair. You just can't. I'm sorry. Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, and The Rock, they got to be on there. But anyways, he goes on talking about he jokes about his alcohol issues in this, saying like drinking 10 beers after the match just to before he gets to the hotel or bar. That's just a warm up. And then he talks about or Chavo Guerrero talks about Ric Flair and Hector Guerrero. Chavo Guerrero was watching this, I guess, and makes a couple cameos because he's in the studio, but he tells a story of Ric Flair ordering him and Hector Guerrero, who is Chavo's uncle, I believe, like 50 kamikazes at closing time, at last call at one point. So it, I mean, Ric Flair's 75 now. He's really holding on to his last strands of hair. I, w- I would say that he should just either try and get hair implants or wear a wig at this point with and I like Ric Flair. I'm not saying this in a mean way because I've lost a lot of my hair too. I should keep my head shaven, but he's really holding on to his last few strands of hair. But like he clearly has an alcohol problem. The amount that he talks about drinking in this, and it's I almost regret looking up to him so much when I was younger because it definitely made me make some mistakes with women as far as being faithful, which I've paid the price for over the years. He's paid the price for too with all his divorces. Um, but yeah, the partying and stuff, the way he makes the partying cool, it's like it's not cool. Like the way he talks about it, that as soon as he got out of rehab, at one point WWE made him go to rehab, and he went straight to a bar after and chugged down 6 beers. And then he talks about drinking. He like makes light of his drinking issues in this, which is fine. I think he's lucky that between his hour-long matches and the cardio he did, he sweated out most of his alcohol over the years, so it didn't affect him as much as it would in normal people. So he talks about his alcoholism in this in a very positive way, and they're kind of joking about it, but it's sad, and I don't think it's something that people should like admire how much he's drank over the years, because a normal person that will lead to horrible consequences. And you look, I mean, his son died of a heroin overdose. Maybe if he had been a better father and husband and role model, his son wouldn't have died. And I'm not, and I love him. I love Ric Flair. I'm just saying that for the people that are still able to change, don't act like don't take his behavior as like behavior that's going to help you in life become someone like that. He's an exception. He could pull that off and not be totally ruined, and he's so famous he's able to keep getting jobs. He's claimed that he drove Andre the Giant around for a year, talked about how much they used to drink. It's funny, at one point in this interview, he does talk about before he was adopted and moved to Minnesota, he was actually born in Memphis, where Rampage Jackson is from. But it's funny because at one point, Ric Flair says in the interview, "Tell me the city, I'll tell you the best bar in the city." And Rampage Jackson says Memphis, where I'm from. And then Ric Flair's like, "Well, I haven't wrestled there that much. I can't remember, but Beale Street was the street in Memphis." And one of the reasons why he didn't wrestle much in Memphis, which I'm sure he did in WWE, but him and Jerry Jarrett had heat at one point because Jerry Jarrett, as he personally told me, had booked him on a big show, but the show was going to lose money, so he ended up canceling Ric Flair, and Ric Flair took it personally. He did famously have a match with Coco Beware on one show there too, but he was supposed to wrestle Bill Dundee, and Bill Dundee switched the title because he didn't want to work with Flair on that particular night. So there was a big uproar over that. So Memphis probably wasn't always the greatest memory for him. He said he liked working with Shawn Michaels the most. He put over Shawn Michaels a lot in this. He says put over his daughter. As far as today's wrestling, he says they plan their stuff out way too much, and they do too dangerous spots. He mentioned all the people that have broken their necks in recent years, and just that people are doing stuff that's really dangerous. And let's face the facts, all these people that are doing flips, the flippity floppity acrobatic stuff, they're not going to be known like Ric Flair. I mean, Rey Mysterio, who's a legend, is one of the exceptions that will go down as one of the all-time greats. But as far as North American wrestling, there's not too many of the real acrobatic guys that get over, and it's done so much that it really takes away from it. Good morning to you, Victor. Have I talked to Ken Patera lately? He did talk to me about living with Ric Flair in this interview. Flair never brought up Ken Patera in this. He did bring up that he never trained his daughter. He said he discouraged his daughter from wrestling at first, but once the son died, that she really wanted to make it in wrestling, and no one can argue that she's done amazing. And of course, Andrade, her husband, is now back in WWE. Rampage Jackson talks in this. Apparently, they went out the night before, the co-host and Flair, and they were going out again that night, but with Rampage that night. Rampage talks about how he was a big fan of Flair's, and he talked about when I guess the A Team came out and Jackson played Mr. T's role. There was a thing they did with WWE where he powerbombed someone on Raw, but they didn't. Or sorry, he had to choke slam someone on Raw because they didn't want him doing the power bomb, even though he was good at the power bomb because I guess he'd done it in Japan. So I guess he's wrestled in Japan or something. But I believe at one point he appeared for TNA too, but I don't really remember. But anyways, he ended up doing the choke slam because they didn't want him doing the power bomb. And then the Big Show got legit mad at him because he did the choke slam. So there you go with the backstage politics. Other than that, talking they were trying to figure out why he had to do so many hour-long matches in his career, and Ric Flair explained because when you wrestle the local guy in the territory, you either had to let the world champion win or go through. In other words, go the full hour and make it a draw. And he says a lot of these local guys could not do the full hour well, so it was like wrestling yourself out there and not very fun. It doesn't sound like that would be very fun. No, no wonder he had to drink so much when you're stuck going against a local wrestler that is not trained to go an hour for an hour every night. He claimed he wrestled 7 days a week, twice on Saturdays, twice on Sundays, 365 days a year, which I'm sure it was close to that at various points. It's nowhere near that these days, by the way, for wrestlers. But those were the main things that stood out to me about the interview. Very entertaining interview overall, but definitely probably because AEW is doing jack shit with him. He didn't hardly put AEW over at all. So I'd be interested to see. I mean, I don't think he cares at this point, but it'd be interesting to see if I mean, not that AEW is using them, but if AEW would give him any heat, because all he really did on this was talk about WWE, other than saying he was with AEW. But I don't know. Oh, he also claimed that he had a heart attack during his last match, which was in Memphis, or sorry, which was in Nashville, in the summer of 2022, which drew very well and got a good pay-per-view buy rate. But I don't think anyone can argue it was a difficult match to watch. He says he's not retired. So he says he has a pacemaker and he passed out numerous times the last time he wrestled, but he's not retired. So he's open to doing something else. Whether he actually had a heart attack in the ring the last time or not, who knows? Wrestlers exaggerate a lot. But if he did, oh, he also says he has no injuries, no injuries at all. And he talked about the plane crash, no injuries that are still bothering him. Talked about the plane crash he had where the pilot died and two people ended up paraplegics, John Valentine being one of them. And he said they were only half a mile from the runway when that plane crash occurred. Yeah, I didn't know Rampage had a podcast either. He's someone I would like to interview. I think I could do a great interview with him. He wrestled for 9 seasons freestyle. Good. I wrestled freestyle quite a bit. Enjoyed it. Yeah, the Ric Flair drip. Oh yeah, here's the other thing that's questionable in this interview. Well, the Ric Flair drip thing, that's from a music video, I guess, which I still haven't seen. But he claims, and I'm not saying he's lying on this. He claims that he's the one that got um, that Puerto Rican rapper Bad Bunny into wrestling. He said that they were waiting to get inside Barclay Center for WWE one night. And you guys tell me in the comments if you believe this story. I mean, but I'm not saying it's false. I'm just saying wrestlers exaggerate a lot. Um, but him and his wife Wendy, or his partner Wendy, were waiting to get in the Barclay Center, and Bad Bunny, who was a nobody at this time, was begging Ric Flair to get in the back, and his wife looked at Ric Flair and said, "Let's get him in the back." So they got him in the back, and they stayed in contact. He eventually appeared in the Bad Bunny music video. Then he blew up, and they stayed friends, and then Bad Bunny ended up getting into wrestling as well. So the only thing that's questionable in that, he says his wife is a very nice person and said, "Ah, come on, let the fan in." When I was at the Rhode Island Comic Con, uh, I forget what year it was. It was the year I interviewed Zeus. There was nobody in line at one point. Like it was dead. I believe it was the Sunday, and Ric Flair was sitting there with his wife. And keep in mind, DDP did an interview with me that day. Scott Hall, um, the guy from Twisted Sister, who I'm forgetting his name right now, D Snyder. But Ric Flair, I come up to him and his wife, and I introduce myself, and I say, "Tell him I'm a wrestler." I actually attended one of his camps with Harley Race, just a year or two before that. But obviously, he didn't remember me from that. But anyways, he wouldn't even do a 1 minute interview. He said he was willing to do it actually, and he looked at his wife, and his wife said no. His wife shook her head no. So I just don't think his wife, who like this guy who looks clearly like a wrestler, is like, I am one of the boys, and you're gonna say no to Rick, who there's no lineup at all for, doing a minute interview with me when all these other wrestlers are saying yes. Dustin Rhodes also said no that day, by the way, but everyone else said yes. X Pac did one, but anyways, I'm not hating on Ric Flair on that because he didn't want to go against his wife. And like, I mean, his wife is clearly the boss in the relationship. But I don't believe that his wife would have been like to a fan, "Oh, let's get the fan in." I just don't think that would have happened. Anyways, I'll end it at that. Please give this video a thumbs up. Enjoy your Saturday.